What's up, everybody? Ryan Thomas, live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, once again bringing you another edition of the Thomas Take, and we got some news inside the world of Major League Baseball, shall I say. Inside Major League Baseball, Robinson Cano, who has been a long-time great, I could say, at the position of second base, has been a fixture in this league for the better part of the last decade, whether it be his career with the Yankees and his career with the Seattle Mariners. I remember back when he made that decision to go from the Yankees to the Seattle Mariners, it was seen as a shock to many. Many Yankees fans were surprised by that idea that they were losing one of their homegrown players to Seattle. A player is going to leave the Yankees and go to Seattle. Usually players come from Seattle to go to the Yankees. Usually they come from the small market teams to go to the big market teams. Not Robinson Cano. Robinson Cano took the $240 million that the Yankees were not willing to give him and ran. And one of the first thoughts that I had, outside of disappointment, because I'm a baseball purist, I'm a baseball fan, hardcore, have really loved the game ever since I was a little kid. And outside of the disappointment that I first realized when hearing the news of Cano's suspension, completely disappointed due to the fact that I've always liked Robinson Cano. I've always thought that he's been a great player in this league. He's done a lot of good things for the league. He's been a good face for the league. But I did have suspicions, as I always do, about players, whether they are clean or not. And that is something that baseball fans have really become victims of these last few years. Post the steroid era, we often wonder which players are actually clean, which players are actually, honest, which players are actually playing the game the way it's supposed to be played with no drugs or performance enhancers or whatever you want to call it. And Cano, I always thought, was one of those guys that might have tipped the line or towed the line or stepped in the batter's box, as I should say, in more ways than one. Over the course of the last few years, maybe whether it's his age or not, I always wondered how a player like him could get bigger to the size that he is now. Now he's still playing second base, but he's a much bigger man than he was when he had first left the New York Yankees. You look at a picture, frame by frame picture. I'm not saying that they look like two completely different people, but there's a noticeable difference. And while one person can say, oh, well, that's because of his age, another person could say that maybe he's dabbling in something. Well, now we know. The substance that he tested positive for was a masking agent for steroids. So at one point or another, or for the last X amount of years, Robinson Cano has been taking illegal steroid supplements that are on the banned list in the majors, in Major League Baseball. And Robinson Cano tested positive for this, and I want to read the statement that was written by all the major news outlets out there in regards to this situation. I mean, an 80-game suspension is nothing to scoff at. That's half a season. The Players Union and the majority of the players in the majors decided that 60 games was not enough and that 80 games was enough, was more than enough in the case of an instance like this. And really, it leads me to have some fear about the league because of the fact that if a player is positive, if they test positive, could Major League Baseball reinforce the punishment and say a one-time positive test, one and done, meaning one and you're out? I would hate to see that. I hate to see guys get banned from a sport that they've, spent their whole life, dedicating their lives to this sport. And in one case in particular, obviously Pete Rose, I've been a big Pete Rose fan, a big Pete Rose advocate to get him back in the game and get him back into the sport of baseball. He should not be banned, in my personal opinion. And the fact that sports gambling is fully allowed now and Pete Rose still banned from the sport of baseball as the all-time active hits leader, it's a little bit of a head-scratcher for me. I don't think that's the solution. Banning a player from baseball, I don't think that's the solution. I think maybe we go, instead of 80, we go 162 games. Ban him for an entire season. Rather than him being a multiple-time offender, ban him for the entire season on the first positive test. Take his money, which in this case, Robinson Cano will lose $11 million in this instance, and he's still owned in my fantasy league, which I find fascinating. Maybe we'll get a development on that front. But Mariners second baseman Robinson Cano was suspended 80 games by Major League Baseball for violating MLB's Joint Drug Prevention and Treatment Program. The suspension is now official and effective immediately. Even though Cano was just placed on the disabled list Monday, he can serve the suspension concurrently with his DL stint. Cano tested positive for furosemide, a diuretic which is commonly used to mask PED usage. The veteran second baseman said in a statement that he was taking the drug to treat a medical ailment and was unaware it was banned. The suspension will keep him sidelined until mid-August and cost him upwards of $11 million in salary. Cano wouldn't be eligible to participate in the postseason if the Mariners were to make it. So currently my buddy Zach Troutwine owns Robinson Cano, kept him in our keeper league, and currently Robinson Cano's ownership percentage in the Yahoo Fantasy Sports Leagues has gone down from 98% to 88%, taking a 10% dip within the last hour, and I would expect that to continue as as time goes by. And I often wonder in this case, and I hate to say it, but you wonder how many players are doing the same thing or attempting to do the same thing. You also wonder if Robinson Cano has been doing this a lot longer than, just recently, given the fact that, as I mentioned from the top, he was a player on the New York Yankees that wanted to be paid mightily, over $200 million, over $220 million. He got $240 million from the Seattle Mariners, took the money and ran. You often wonder if he was doing this during that point, trying to really bloat his numbers, make his numbers better. And to anybody that says, well, you have to have the talent to hit the ball that far, you have to have the batter's eye, you have to have the upper body strength, whatever you want to call it, you have to be a talented baseball player in order to hit a baseball that far. True, but if it wasn't working as a benefit and benefiting, as I should say, if it wasn't working or benefiting these players, they wouldn't be doing it. If it didn't benefit the players, why would these guys do it? They do it because they know that it benefits their game, and they also know that it helps them get through injury. That's why baseball players take steroids. It's not because they want to look like bodybuilders. It's not because they think it's cool. It's like some club. That's not the way it goes. They know what it can do for their performance, and they know that it can help them stay or get healthy. It's a shame. I've always liked Robinson Cano. He seems like a good guy, but, every MLB player knows that they cannot do this. Every MLB player knows that if you test positive, you're never seen as the same player before. 80 games is a long time. Robinson Cano is going to have no access to any Major League Baseball facilities. He's going to have to keep in shape on his own. Some players are not willing to do that outside of the team facilities, and I'm not saying Robinson Cano is one of those guys, but it's a lot harder when you don't have state-of-the-art equipment around you to keep you in shape. And Robinson Cano is going to have to stay active, stay ready, and who knows what shape he'll be in when he comes back. Also, the fact is that if the Seattle Mariners make the playoffs, which I don't think they will, but let's just say if they did make the playoffs, Robinson Cano would have no ability he would not be allowed to play on the Mariners with this suspension. That was a part of the new MLB Players Union, Players Association agreement, that if a player tests positive for these steroids, you're not going to be part of the postseason roster. So I have a comment on Facebook from Tom's El Chapo Michael, and he said, let's see here. He said, I said, every Yankee outside of Jeter is a cheater, which is a great saying, great rhyme by me, great pun on words by me. Guys played for Seattle for years now, and it's the Yankees' fault. I said, it's a joke, quit crying. It's not like these guys start this stuff yesterday and get caught today. Be smart. So I've been getting real wild lately. It was a smart-ass comment towards a smart-ass comment. Yeah, okay. It is what it is. More importantly, Carson Smith, the Red Sox relief pitcher, setup man, whatever you want to call him, suffered a, quote, potentially major shoulder injury throwing his glove. Threw his glove down and blew out his shoulder, apparently. So there's that. That's not fun. But to say that, he's been on Seattle for a couple years, and now that he got popped for steroids, it's the Yankees' fault. As I mentioned, he obviously has been doing this for quite some time. He got caught now because Major League Baseball has a much more strict drug testing policy than they ever have before. And in that time span, they create a more strict drug testing policy, and yes, he got caught. So, yeah, I'm speculating by saying this, but it leads me to wonder, how long has this guy been doing this? How long has he been bending the system? How long has he been looking for angles to try to make his game better than the average human? And that's not cool. So, when it was legal, when steroids were legal, it was one thing. It was the wild, wild west. Do whatever you want. The steroids are legal. When they're not legal, that's when we have problems. That's when I have a problem. When the players full well know that they are illegal, they cannot take them, and they do it anyway, you are a cheater. If something is legal, if it's legal to bend the rules, if it's legal to take certain supplements and you take them, you're technically not doing anything wrong. But now, in 2018, in this day and age of Major League Baseball, if you are going to take something and get caught for it, you are just plumb stupid. I'm Ryan Thomas, everybody. It was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Robinson Cano, suspended for 80 games, will miss half the season and will not be able to play in postseason action if the Marlins do decide to make it. Take care, everybody.